Welcome everyone to this edition of My Daily Commute. In this video I wanted to talk about a question that a lot of people have actually asked me throughout my time in the MD PhD program, which pertains to traveling. A lot of people ask me questions like, how do you have the time to go and travel, or where do you get the money to do this kind of stuff, to go and travel? So I figured I'd talk about that a little bit because, like I said, it's a pretty frequent question that comes up that people ask me about. Just to give you a bit of background, when I started medical school, my thought process was that I wouldn't be able to go anywhere. And honestly, I've been quite surprised by how much freedom I've had and how many opportunities I've been able to, travel opportunities I've been able to take advantage of. To give you more of a background, when I started medical school, my thought process was, all right, here I am, I'm locked into the next 8 years, I'm not going to do anything but study, and I've actually found that to be quite false. One trip, really, I think that changed my mind was my first year of medical school during spring break. I went on a 6 week trip, 6 weeks would be way too much, on a 6-day trip to South Africa. I just found a deal, I booked it for spring break, went, and it was one of the most amazing experiences I've ever had in my life. So after I came back, I started thinking more about traveling, and I came up with this idea to do called Myoglobin. It's basically, the idea is to go around and check out cool gyms and workouts while I'm traveling, kind of like how people check out cool food spots, you know? So that was my idea, and I decided to go and try to make that a reality. So the first question I'll talk about is, how do you find the time to do this? Which I think really is a nuanced question, because it really depends on, it's not really that you're given the time, it's like, how do you prioritize everything and how do you make that time? So the first thing, which is really easy to do, is I just took advantage of all my vacation days, right? So actually I should say all of them, because I usually don't go, and I guess this will tie into the financial part, but I don't normally go anywhere during winter break because everything is so stupid expensive during that time. I would take my big international trips when possible during the off season, during spring break, usually because the ticket prices are a lot lower around that time. So I took advantage of spring break. I took advantage of my allowed absences. So I think in my program during pre-clinical year, you can have at least, I want to say, one advantage of that. So look, for example, when I went to Denver, I did a trip Thursday night, or no, I think it went Friday morning. So I went to class Friday morning, and I left to go to the airport probably like around 12 or 1 o'clock, and I was on this flight to Denver, and I came back Monday night. So really I just missed 1 day of school. With Costa Rica, this was the exception. I usually don't travel during winter break, but I did this time. I think I ended up coming back a day late, and I missed that 1 day of class again. And I guess I was trying to separate this out between the financial and the time perspectives, but they kind of blend in together, because when I came back from Costa Rica, the reason I came back a day late was because it was a lot cheaper to come back the next day, and I was able to save a lot of money doing it that way. So those are just some things that I've done. In my PhD, the way so also, here's another thing. When I did medical school, my mentality was, you know what? I'm going to be in med school. The thing with med school is like the curriculum's going to be moving whether I'm there or not. So I have to study, and I still have to study regardless, like if I'm there or if I'm somewhere else. But with my PhD, I have to be there driving everything forward. If I don't, nothing's going to move, so I can't travel during my PhD. And I was able to work my way around that. Essentially what I've been doing is I will stockpile my days. It's really two things. I stock up my days, so I will do back-to-back experiments. I'll pull in 12-hour days, maybe even more. I've had 14-hour days for sure in the lab. Now, what that does is, I've done a lot of experiments in one day, but then there's like a backlog of data to be analyzed. I also do a lot of computational work. So all these vacations I've taken during my PhD, all these times that I've traveled, I have really minimized the hit that I would take in terms of my PhD progress, because I still work, I still analyze my data, I still have my meetings with my advisor while I'm on the move, and I don't mentally take off from my lab work when I'm taking a trip. And because of that, I think I've been able to go to more places and avoid the potential slowdown to my work. So, for example, during my two most recent trips, I was working on 2 review papers, and I actually submitted one of them, or I did most of the work. Actually, no, I'm sorry, I did submit one of them while I was out on a trip. So, I guess a lot of my work does bleed into my trips, and I don't mind. I think that's essentially the key. If you have fun doing research, and if you are able to do it while traveling, while on the go, while you're supposed to be off, it opens up doors in terms of how often you're able to leave the lab. And that's another way I've been able to make time. The other aspect is, I've been very fortunate to work with some very, very wonderful undergrads, and they're able to hold it down while I'm out. I think that's actually a really good something to think about when you're choosing schools or when you're choosing a program, because you're not going to find undergrads at every institution. You'll typically find them at institutions that have affiliated undergrad campus in close proximity. If I was to work at my medical school, I would not have access to the number of undergrads that I do now. But because I'm working at College Park, or University of Maryland College Park, which is home to, I don't know how many, but a couple thousand probably, maybe 10, 20,000 undergrads, I am able to take advantage of that and to work very closely with these undergrads. And typically the way I do it is I will actually prefer to cover weekends and more typical holidays. So like Christmas break, Thanksgiving, I'm working, right? And I don't ask my undergrads to do much, unless they want to on weekends. But then the flip side of that is they are amazing. They cover for me on weekdays, and a lot of these days that I'm out, which do end up being weekdays. So I've been able to develop the system that allows me to have a system in place so that my work really never stops, even when I'm not there. There's always something going, whether it's on the computer in terms of data analysis, writing, or computational work, or in the lab through the work that my wonderful undergrads are doing. All right, so I think I've covered some key aspects of the time management aspect of this. I guess the only other thing that I wanted to add about medical school is that I also used to study while traveling. I would do my Anki cards while on a boat, while on a bus, whatever it might be. Studying never really stopped. All right, now let's get on to the financial aspect of it. So my perspective on traveling, I feel like it's very similar to what I think I actually got it. I was kind of inspired by what the Baltimore Ravens do when drafting. They go for the best player available. If they have a player that they really like, regardless of position, they'll usually take them. Or at least that's the way they used to do things. So I kind of have I feel like I have the same mentality. So when I look for travel deals, I'll go for the best option, financially, like the best deal, even if it's not like my number one spot. That's kind of how my trip to Colombia happened, how my recent trip to South Africa when I went back was also similar to that, where I found a deal and then I went for it. The second thing is, when I book these flights, I'm always looking for the best deal, right? So I use Secret Flying, I use Skyscanner, and these Google Flights to kind of scour for the best prices when I know I'm going to be free, or whenever there's like an opportunity, whenever I feel like I have the time to travel. And so you can usually find good deals there. The third thing is, when booking domestic flights, I actually go for Spirit or Frontier. I've had really good experiences with them. I don't get what the hate is all about, because I kid you not, I've had some of the best naps in my life on a Spirit plane. And if you're not gonna give me food or water for like 3-4 hours for a 3-4 hour flight, maybe 6 hours if I'm going all the way west, that's not a big deal for me. But the other thing with these carriers is that if you go and book at the airport, you can get extremely cheap prices, at least $20 off each way. So for example, my tickets to Denver have typically been around $40 to $60 round trip. I want to say maybe $60 more typical, although I found deals for $40. When I went to Alaska, first time I only went for $200 round trip from DC to Alaska, to Anchorage, Alaska. The second time I went, I booked a ticket from Houston, because I was visiting my cousin in Houston at the time, to Denver, which is $15. And I think from there I booked another ticket. I booked my round trip ticket to Denver for like maybe $100 something, $150 maybe at the most, I can't remember, from Denver to Alaska. And then my return trip to DC was probably like, I want to say $30 or something. So in total I spent maybe $200 again. I think honestly it was a little bit less than that. It might have been closer to $150 for the whole round trip, but I have to go back and double check. I booked my tickets to Vegas from DC to Vegas on Frontier for $70 round trip. So by taking advantage of that, it's been a huge financial. I've been able to save a lot of money. And then I guess the other part of it is when I do go with friends, right? I will sometimes sleep in a car. Like when I went to Iceland, half the trip we spent in a car. We didn't book a hotel, which also saved us a lot of money. So I'll do things like that, and my trips on average are, I don't think they're that expensive. Like I went to Morocco when I went my second year of medical school. I did the whole trip, including flight, for maybe $1,000. I spent about maybe like maybe $20, $30 a night on the Airbnbs. The food is extremely cheap. And I remember like I came back home and it was very cheap. Maybe not 1,000, maybe 1,500 at the most. So I could definitely go into the financial details of this later if that's of interest, but that is just, that's just kind of what I remember from the top. So a lot of these financial details, I don't remember the exact numbers, and I have to sit down, and I can do that if that is of interest. So I guess the last question would be like, where do you get the money from, right? I'm an MD PhD student, so I get paid a stipend, so I definitely pull money from there. I also will freelance a lot, and I'll work odd jobs. So I'll take advantage of my computer science major, and I'll work gigs here and there. I also used to do a lot of pet sitting, which was probably one of the best jobs you can do as a medical student, because you come home, or like your work is essentially stress relief. You're hanging out with a bunch of cats, which was also pretty awesome. And yeah, it's really just been a combination with stipend money and odd jobs. I think I've pretty much been working on the side, doing the side hustle since my second year of medical school, and I've never really stopped, and it helps me make money for the travels that I want to do. Other gigs that I've done in addition to the cat sitting include videography. I've done wedding videography. I've done other video gigs. I've written a blog for people I've written blogs for medical school websites, so I've done a bunch of those things. So that's pretty much all I have for this video. Like always, if you have any questions or comments, please leave them below, and definitely subscribe, and let me know if you guys want me to focus on anything else specific in the future. I always try to I always have time while I'm driving in my lab, so to definitely make more videos in the future. Just let me know if you have any questions. Thanks for tuning in.